The hum of the fluorescent lights was a constant companion, a droning lullaby that usually faded into the background. Tonight, however, it felt amplified, a stark reminder of the silence pressing in from all sides. I was alone in the office again. Deadlines loomed, a monstrous hydra of reports and presentations demanding my attention. The rest of my team, sensible souls, had long departed, leaving me to wrestle with spreadsheets under the pale glow of artificial light. I told myself I liked the solitude, the undisturbed focus, but the gnawing anxiety in my gut painted a different picture. Our office wasn't exactly known for its cheery atmosphere. It was a relic, a holdover from a bygone era, all drab cubicles and stained carpets. The building itself, the old Harrington building, had a history whispered about in hushed tones. Murmurs of a fire in the 1950s, a disgruntled employee who jumped from the roof, tales that added a certain flavor to the late-night work experience. I usually dismissed them as urban legends, but tonight, they felt disturbingly real. I stretched, my back protesting after hours hunched over my computer. A glance at the clock confirmed my fears. 11:47 p.m. I should probably call it a night, but the thought of facing my demanding boss empty-handed kept me chained to my desk. Suddenly, a sharp thwack echoed from the far end of the office. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. We had a security guard, old Mr. Henderson, but he usually patrolled the ground floor. This was the 5th floor. My floor. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The only response was the hum of the lights, now a sinister drone. I told myself it was probably just the wind, rattling something against the window. We had a few eternally ajar windows that the facilities team could never quite seem to fix. I tried to return to my work, but the unease had burrowed deep under my skin. Every creak of the building, every rustle from the vents, sent shivers down my spine. Another sound, this time closer. A soft, rhythmic scraping, like nails dragging across a surface. It was coming from the hallway outside my cubicle. I held my breath, straining to hear. The scraping stopped. Then a slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap against the wall. My mind raced. Could it be Mr. Henderson? Maybe he was doing some weird security check. But why would he be tapping on the walls? I reached for my phone, my fingers fumbling with the cold metal. My thumb hovered over the emergency call button. Just as I was about to press it, the tapping stopped. Silence. I waited, every muscle tense, listening for any sign of movement. Nothing. After what felt like an eternity, I slowly stood up, my chair scraping against the linoleum floor. The sound seemed deafening in the oppressive quiet. Peeking cautiously over the top of my cubicle wall, I scanned the hallway. Empty. The rows of vacant cubicles stretched into the darkness, illuminated only by the sickly glow of the overhead lights. "Mr. Henderson?" I called out, my voice barely a whisper. Silence. Maybe it was just my imagination, the product of too much caffeine and sleep deprivation. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I was being ridiculous. I retreated back into my cubicle, determined to ignore the strange noises and finish my work. But the fear had taken root, and every shadow seemed to writhe and twist in my peripheral vision. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then plunged the entire office into darkness. A gasp escaped my lips. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers trembling so badly I could barely grip it. Finally, I managed to turn on the flashlight. The beam cut through the inky blackness, revealing the ghostly outlines of the cubicles. The silence was now absolute, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then, a new sound, a low guttural growl, coming from the far end of the office. My blood ran cold. This wasn't the wind. This wasn't my imagination. Something was definitely here in the office with me. The growl grew louder, closer. I could feel the vibrations in the floor beneath my feet. It was moving towards me. Panic seized me. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to get out. I stumbled out of my cubicle, the flashlight beam dancing wildly as I tried to navigate the darkness. Another growl, even closer this time, followed by a sickening thud. Something had knocked over a stack of files in one of the nearby cubicles. I didn't look back. I ran. I sprinted down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest, the flashlight beam bouncing erratically in front of me. I knew the way to the stairwell by heart, having walked it countless times during the day. But in the darkness, it felt like a labyrinth. As I reached the end of the hallway, I saw it. A figure, silhouetted against the faint light filtering in from the stairwell window. It was tall and gaunt, its limbs unnaturally long and thin. It stood perfectly still, watching me. I screamed and threw myself towards the stairwell door, fumbling with the handle. It wouldn't turn. It was locked. Tears streamed down my face. I was trapped. The figure began to move, slowly, deliberately. It glided across the floor, its feet making no sound. I pounded on the door, screaming for help, knowing that no one would hear me. I was completely alone. As the figure drew closer, I could make out more details. Its face was pale and gaunt, its eyes hollow and black. Its mouth was stretched into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. It reached out a long, spindly hand, its fingers tipped with sharp, black claws. I flinched back, expecting to feel the pain of its touch. But then the lights flickered back on. The figure vanished. I stared at the empty hallway, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The fluorescent lights hummed above me, casting a sterile, almost mocking glow. Had I imagined it all? Was it just a hallucination, brought on by stress and sleep deprivation? I didn't know, but I wasn't taking any chances. I stumbled down the stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time. I didn't stop until I reached the ground floor, bursting through the front doors and into the cool night air. Mr. Henderson was sitting at his desk, reading a newspaper. He looked up in surprise as I rushed past him. "Everything all right, miss?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. I need to go home," I stammered, my voice trembling. He shrugged. "All right then. You have a good night now." I didn't say anything. I just kept walking, not stopping until I reached my car. As I drove home, I replayed the events of the night in my mind. Was it real, or just a nightmare? I still didn't know. But I knew one thing. I would never work late in that office again. The next day, I arrived at work late, nursing a massive headache and the lingering feeling of dread. I avoided my usual spot and remained near the reception area, not wanting to go back up the 5th floor. Around lunchtime, a few colleagues were chatting about the Harrington building over coffee. I felt a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. "Heard it used to be an old asylum, you know," one of them said, sending shivers down my spine. "Burnt down in the 50s. Patients still roam the halls. Some say." My blood ran cold. I had to know more. "Has anyone ever seen anything?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. They exchanged glances. Then one of them, a woman named Sarah, spoke up. "Well, my uncle used to work here. He said he saw things sometimes late at night. Shadows moving, whispers in the dark. He never liked being alone in the office." Another colleague chimed in. "My friend worked security here for a while. He quit after a month. Said he couldn't handle it. He told me about strange noises, flickering lights, and feeling like he was being watched." My heart sank. It wasn't just me. Other people had experienced strange things in that building. I needed to find out the truth. That evening, after everyone had left, I steeled myself and returned to the office. This time, I wasn't alone. I had convinced Sarah to come with me. She was just as curious as I was, but also terrified. We started by researching the history of the Harrington building, poring over old newspaper articles and historical records. What we found was chilling. The building had indeed been an asylum, called the Blackwood Sanitarium. It housed the criminally insane, and rumors of abuse and unethical experiments ran rampant. In 1958, a fire broke out, claiming the lives of hundreds of patients and staff. The official cause was faulty wiring, but many believed it was arson, set by one of the patients. The building remained abandoned for years, until it was renovated and turned into office space in the late 1980s. But the dark history lingered, a stain on the very foundations of the building. As we delved deeper, we discovered accounts of strange occurrences in the office, dating back to the early 1990s. Employees reported seeing shadowy figures, hearing disembodied voices, and experiencing sudden drops in temperature. Some even claimed to have been physically assaulted by unseen forces. The fifth floor, where our office was located, seemed to be the epicenter of the paranormal activity. It was believed to be where the most violent patients were housed in the asylum. Armed with this knowledge, we decided to conduct our own investigation. We spent the night, armed with flashlights, EMF readers, and a digital voice recorder. As soon as we entered the fifth floor, the atmosphere changed. The air grew colder, and a sense of unease settled over us. The EMF reader began to fluctuate wildly, indicating the presence of a strong electromagnetic field. We walked through the office, calling out to any spirits that might be present. "Is anyone here? Do you want to communicate with us?" At first, there was no response. But then, the temperature dropped suddenly, and we heard a faint whisper, barely audible above the hum of the lights. Sarah gasped and grabbed my arm. "Did you hear that?" I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. "Yes, I think it said, 'Help me.'" We continued our investigation, moving from cubicle to cubicle, documenting our findings. The EMF reader continued to spike, and we heard more whispers, some unintelligible, others chillingly clear. In one of the cubicles, we found a small, child's toy, a porcelain doll with a cracked face and missing eyes. As soon as I picked it up, I felt a wave of sadness and despair wash over me. "Put it down," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "I don't like it." I quickly placed the doll back in the cubicle, and the feeling of dread lifted. As the night wore on, the activity intensified. We heard footsteps in the hallway, the sound of doors slamming shut, and the feeling of being watched became overwhelming. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the office into darkness. We screamed and clung to each other, our flashlights cutting through the blackness. Then we heard the growl, the same low, guttural growl I had heard the night before. It was coming from the far end of the office, moving closer. We knew we had to get out. We ran, our flashlights bouncing wildly as we stumbled through the darkness. We reached the stairwell and raced down the steps, not stopping until we were safely outside the building. We never went back to the office. I quit my job a few weeks later, unable to shake the feeling of dread that had taken root within me. Sarah also found a new job, far away from the Harrington building. We had faced something truly terrifying in that office, something that defied explanation. We had stared into the abyss, and it had stared back. I still have nightmares about the Harrington building, about the shadowy figures and the guttural growl. But I also have a newfound respect for the power of the unseen, the forces that lurk in the darkness, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal themselves. And I know, with absolute certainty, that some places are best left undisturbed. Some doors are better left unopened. Some secrets are better left buried.